let's just go ahead and get started. I know a few people are trickling in, but we should just go ahead and get started. This will be recorded, so if you guys need to go and study, no big deal. We'll post it. We'll just do a quick introduction, and then we'll get to the questions. Preferably don't put your questions in the chat, because people that are going to watch this recording are not going to be able to see that. So the plan is we'll do brief introductions, then we'll go through the questions in kind of categorical. They're categorized in different sections, so it's STEP and then clinical. So we'll try to keep it chronological for you guys. At the end, if y'all have any questions, we can talk about all that. So my name's Brady. I was the IEA president a few terms ago. I'm currently finishing up third year up at St. Joe's in Paterson in New Jersey. I do apologize. I am working labor and delivery tonight. If I have to run and save a life, stand in the corner just to watch them deliver baby, I may have to do that. But you're in good hands if that's the case. So anyway, y'all want to go ahead, Akash?
Yeah, hey, so my name's Akash. I'm also, just like Brady, third year in St. Joe's, Paterson, also with him in OB-GYN. Not in labor and delivery, though.
Savannah?
Hi, I'm Savannah. I just finished my course probably like a month ago. I didn't have family med in my schedule, so I was a little lucky. So I'm kind of like supposed to be in dedicated for step 2 right now, which is, kind of rough, but it's fine. But I'm in Brooklyn, New York. I did most of my course at Brooklyn Hospital Center. Right now I'm back home. I just got back home to Texas. I'm from Texas. But yeah.
Pooja?
Hey guys, my name is Pooja. I just finished 4th year, and I recently matched IM at Hackensack, which is where I did all my 3rd year rotations as well as some of my 4th year electives. But I also did electives at Jersey City, Mountainside, and Newark Beth Israel as well.
Yes, we should give a big shout out to both Pooja and Nick, who both matched. Nick, you want to tell them where you going? Nick?
Oh, sorry, my Wi-Fi cut out. Hey guys, I'm Nick. I'm vice president from a couple of years ago now. I also just finished 4th year and I matched anesthesia at the University of Connecticut. I did my 3rd year at O'Connor in California, and then I did my 4th year kind of back and forth in a bunch of hospitals in New York, New Jersey.
So if anybody's curious about the West Coast, Nick's the guy you want to reach out to. Sean's making a protein shake. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, excuse my protein scooping habits. My name is Sean, for those of you that don't know. I was the IEA president in term 5. I think that was what, 2 terms now? 2 terms ago. So I'm currently finishing up 3rd year in Brooklyn, specifically Kings County Hospital. So yeah, if any of you are heading to New York, you can catch me out here, and looking forward to answering all your questions.
So we don't want to bombard you guys with a lot of the logistics of 3rd year too much. You guys have to get through step first. So let's just go ahead and start with that. I'm assuming all of you guys have put in your placements already for where you're thinking about going or where you're planning on going. Is that correct? Is that done already? You've submitted everything? Yes?
Yeah, we submitted the app a couple weeks ago.
Okay, good. So no questions about that. It's all said and done. If you have, once you get placed, if you have questions about where you're going, Facebook's the easy way to find out who's been there. If any of the IEA members are there, they'll be happy to talk to you. But let's talk about STEP first. So why don't we just go through, Akash, you want to tell them kind of what you're, finishing term 5, where they're at now, what your process was walking from step 5 into dedicated?
Yeah, so do you want me to go over step studying as well?
Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with, that's fine.
Yeah, so step studying wise, I'm sure everybody's already knows the resources. I was pretty streamlined, and I just wanted to use a couple of resources. I used Anki and UWorld, literally that's it, and First Aid, sorry, as well, for studying. And I spent about, I want to say 9 weeks total studying for step 1. And yeah, so after you get your placement, we in our term had a couple more months, I guess, than everybody else. So after we finished STEP, we had another about a month, I want to say, after we finished STEP. We had that time to kind of figure out the housing situation and everything. But yeah, so from STEP, I had about a month until we started clinicals. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say for now.
Yeah, I think one of the important things to remember is the way term 5 is set up. You know, it's kind of hard getting into the rhythm of term 5, but it kind of the thought process is if you kind of get through term 5, you could kind of walk into dedicated with the same thought process. So if you ended up doing a lot of UWorld questions, like a lot of us do, the transition should be fairly easy. Yes, first aid and by all means questions. The best correlate to how well you do on the exam is how many questions you do. Okay, at the end of the day, you have to play the game. The game is multiple choice questions. So it is important to review stuff if you like AMBOSS and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you definitely need to be doing questions. Okay, so Savannah, you want to tell us about your STEP experience?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like going off the questions thing just right off the bat, I feel like I have more things that I would like wish that I did versus like giving advice on how I studied, because I don't know, it was tough for me to kind of like get into the zone, and I don't know, like I didn't know what was working best for me. I should have used that like time in term 5 to try and figure that out, but went back to the island. It wasn't really focused that much on trying to figure out my schedule at the time, honestly. I was just like happy to like not be in my house from COVID and all of that. So but like what I would have wanted to do is I wish that I did more UWorld questions. I didn't end up finishing through UWorld because I have like a tough time of like wanting to like review, like do more passive reviewing, like reading or like watching videos. And like getting scared of like not wanting to do questions until I feel like prepared enough to do them. But so it was like hard to get out of that mindset. But I think it would be best if you could get out of that mindset and just do questions, even if you don't feel like you know are going to know like what's going on, because like you really just like use them to learn from the questions. And there's only so much you can like learn from like listening to a video and like reading what's in the book. It's really like about doing practice questions, seeing how they're going to like ask the questions is a big thing that you're not going to get from like watching Boards and Beyond really, or like reading. So I would say like definitely try and just do more questions. I know a lot of people do struggle with like not wanting to do questions and feeling more like they want to review. So I would like just try and go in and just like do questions. I did it like system-based to start, which I think is it works for me. A lot of people like work differently, depends on how well your knowledge is, I guess like foundation. But I wanted to do like systems first. I feel like I remember things more that way. So I was doing that with UWorld and reviewing the topics and like doing questions. And then like towards the end, you know, you start doing mix. So you can just get used to like seeing random topics being brought up versus just like being stuck in one subject. And then also like it's really important for y'all to like practice doing it timed also once you get further along in it, because time management is still like such a tough thing for, I know a lot of students. Like now when we're doing shelf exams and then like step 2, like my biggest thing is like time. Like I keep running out of time, and I'm kind of at like a constant of like where I always like run out of time around like 10 minutes. Like I know I'm like losing time, and then if you like click through all those questions, then that could be like 10 questions you get wrong. And so working on like test taking skills is super important, because I was a weak test taker too, like standardized exams. So I think that's really, really important too, because that can really make or break you too. If you run out of time, you're not managing your time properly, you're spending too long on one question. So yeah, I'll harp on questions. Other than that, I'm not a big Anki person, which I've tried to get more into that like now, because we need more repetition. But I think for step 1, like it's good if you are one, but don't try and like get into Anki during step 1 studying if you haven't done that already. And then like I use Boards and Beyond. AMBOSS is a really good source. If you don't already have it, I would recommend getting it like now for step 1. I know like some of my friends didn't even know about AMBOSS until like now, like at the end of core rotations, and they like wish that they had gotten it earlier. sketchy, things like that. But yeah, it's really just about trying to figure out like what works best for you. And it's going to be like a, I don't know, constant process probably. If you like can't figure out like what's going to work best. I switched up my stuff all the time, like what I was doing every day. But yeah, I would say, I think that's all I have to say about step one. Good luck to everyone.
Yeah, I was never really a big Anki person either. Akash is. So if you have questions, logistical questions, you can always reach out to him. He knows it backwards and forwards. So that's good. So let's talk a little bit about UWorld first. As Savannah mentioned, some people do like to go through the material and feel like they understand it before they get to doing the questions. I think in an ideal situation, that's fine, but y'all are very constricted with how much time do y'all have? It's less than 8 weeks, right? It's like 6 weeks. Is that right?
So they've been telling us to aim for August start date for clinicals to take it by July 2nd.
How many weeks does that give y'all? 6 weeks. Okay, so that's tight, like 7, 8 comfortably. Yeah, so 6 week with no break. So look, here's the thing, you got to start. You really can't take a week off. And you really want to take it by the deadline if you can, because then you won't have as many issues getting clinical placement. Once you get past the deadline, things get a little weird. But ideally, you want to take it back but by the 6 week mark. That being said, if you're not prepared, obviously don't take it by then. The point here is that if you only have 6 weeks, you really need to keep going. Like I would take the weekend off maybe, but you just need to push through. There'll be time later for it. But yeah, that's really tight, but you should plan to do it. I would also, if you haven't, set a firm date to take it, like actually put it on paper. There's something about actually having it there and, not, I mean, you can push it back, but the fact that it's on paper kind of pushes you to keep going. Few things about UWorld, since y'all are just new to that. And I was kind of saying what Savannah said, a lot of people have like to feel like they understand the material before they start questions. With the only 6 weeks, it's probably better to start integrating the questions earlier. Now, don't feel bad if you're not doing really great, because a lot of these questions, you're going to learn from the questions. Like if you get it wrong, that's fine. The point is that you learn from it. Also, those percentages are very skewed because people do their incorrects too. You don't feel like that mark is like a firm mark. You see the average and you're like, why am I not average? You probably are. It's just that people are doing these questions multiple times, so it skews up the average. But yeah, UWorld's going to be your best friend. Utilize the notebook that they have. I really like it. You can kind of copy and paste in the notebook and have everything there. So let's see, Sean, y'all only had like 6 weeks, right? What did you do for?
Yeah, so as soon as I finished term 5, it was like the end. It was actually May 10th, I think. And I had taken it by July, I think 7th was our deadline. So it was a similar kind of timeline. My advice to you guys would definitely be, you have to gauge yourself based on how much you think you already know. So if that deadline is not going to be feasible for you, just forget the deadline. Because 6 weeks is tight if you already have a good foundation. Is it doable? Yes, 100%, but you don't want to kind of overdo it. So with that said, like Brady said, 6 weeks, you can't be taking like a week and a half off for dedicated, like before starting dedicated. You kind of have to hit the ground running, in my opinion. As well as I really like what Brady said there about not worrying about the percentages. Obviously, if your step is like a few days from now and your scores are not where you want them to be, that's something you want to keep an eye on. But at the same time, don't kind of dedicate. It can be really difficult if you're determining like your own, like say, self-worth, for lack of a better term, by your UWorld percentages or your NBME scores. So don't get frustrated if you get a question wrong or you get 3 in a row wrong on UWorld. Just kind of look at the question and be like, why did I get this wrong? Right. And if you have to do the question 5 times, or you have to sit there and read through it for like 20 minutes, if that's what it takes, that's more than fine. Just as long as, the second time it comes around, you're not going to get it wrong again. And especially when you only have 6 weeks to do a certain amount of information, you can't really keep going over the same thing like 4 different times. If you sit down, get it, you know, in your head the first time, or maybe the second time if it's a difficult concept, that should be good enough. But to keep redoing, you know, like E. coli 4 different times, you're going to start, you know, losing out on time. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
And you can do your incorrects, but you can also mark the questions too. So like, if you don't have time to go through all your incorrects, you can just mark the ones that you kind of, the topics that you keep getting wrong, and just go through those. So it's kind of protracted a little bit. What else? Pooja, do you remember taking step 1, doctor? It's been a while, huh?
It's been a while, but that. All right. So it's been a while, but I think that kind of what you guys have been saying, you don't want to do things over and over, so you should be only going over it once. The only other thing I would add is when you mark questions, the good thing about that is you can also mark questions that you got right, but you guessed on and aren't sure why you got it right. So I think that's another reason it might be better to do that instead of doing your incorrects. But I think everyone else pretty much touched upon what I did. UWorld was like pretty much all I did during dedicated for the most part.
And just to add, sorry to cut you off, Brady. When you do a question, like, for example, like Brady, if you're on OB right now, like just if you're going through and you're answering the question, let's say like uterine rupture or something. I don't know if they cover that on step 1, I don't remember, but like you should be able to look at the other options and say like, okay, if it was this, how would that present? If it was this, how could that present? That way you're not just focused on what UWorld is asking you, you're also looking at the other options and kind of expanding on what you already know. And if you see an answer or choice that like you don't even recognize, then that's something you could go ahead and look further into. You don't have to be limited to the scope of the question. If the, you know, if they have this bacteria as one of the options and you've never even heard of that bacteria, that's something you can go on and Google, or as like Savannah said, like if you're into AMBOSS, you can go on AMBOSS and search it up and kind of fill in the gaps. You should be taking charge of like what it is that you're learning. Don't just do what UWorld tells you to do.
Yes, that's a good point. That being said, if it's taking you 6 hours to do a block, that's a problem too, right? Okay, so like you need to find a window to where you're learning as much as you can, but you're not just trying to fill everything and it's taking you too long. So if it comes down to a few options that you want to check, like you just have to gauge how well you're doing, okay? But like don't end up spending 6 hours on a 40 question block, or you know what I mean? Like you just don't have time for that. So you really have to kind of fine tune what works for you. What works for one person obviously doesn't work for everyone. Nick, what was your experience?
I mean, like Pooja was saying, it was 2 years ago now, but pretty much what everyone said, you know, keep really focus on those year-old questions. And when you're going through them, make sure you know why you got it right or why you got it wrong. And even why the other answer choices are wrong, or what would make them be right in that situation, and why you crossed them out even.
I also wanted to say something. I think it would be smart if y'all like took a baseline exam, a baseline NBME, and don't get like too discouraged by your score. Like I did terrible on mine. Like it was like more of like a thing to be like, okay, like I need to like actually like sit down and grind, because like even though it's pass fail, we were the first ones to take it as pass fail. That kind of took off a lot of weight, but then like after taking that NBME, I was like, oh my God, like, I mean, it's not even that easy to like just pass. So, and it will give you a good idea of like where you're lacking in, and just give you a feel of like what the exam questions like will be like. And yeah, like where you could start focusing, because I mean, it's hard to like, yeah, you're going to have to hit the ground running. I didn't realize y'all only had like 6-8 weeks. That's crazy. I was in the January class too, so I had like 3 months basically, but I took a month off, and I feel like that actually made it harder to get back into it. But yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I did the same. I took all of December off, and it was tough. So just don't think about it. Just keep studying. Just you don't have a lot of time, unfortunately. I completely agree. I would take a baseline NBME. And as I said, with the UWorld percentages, like how it's kind of skewed because people do it twice, you could use the NBME as a good gauge. So when you take those intermittently every 2 weeks or whatnot, you could kind of see where you're going. But just so you know, if you're getting an average on UWorld, like just average, that equates to like a 230 on STEP. Okay, so like that's great, right? So don't think that, you know, I think that the percentages on you will kind of get to all of us. We kind of like a running joke around here, but yes, a baseline NBME, and you should try to intermix those as you go, like every 2 weeks or whatnot. Yeah, okay, I'll think about it when it comes up. Let's see. Okay, advice for test day. Okay, what do you think, Akash? Do you skip instruction? Yeah, I skipped. Do y'all skip the instruction? Wait, no, never mind. Yes, we skipped the instruction. Sorry, I've been up for a while. I'm on a 24-hour shift. Yes, I
Instructions
skipped.
doesn't. No, I was gonna say instructions doesn't like the instruction page on the first.
I
Is
guess,
that
yeah.
what it
Do you
is?
read
Okay.
that? I don't read that.
No, I didn't read it. I think when you take the UWorld exam, it kind of, or I forgot actually. Now it's been a while. I think on the UWorld exam, it tells you the instructions or whatever, and you kind of have an idea of maybe what to expect on the day. But no, I didn't read anything. I literally just hit skip tutorial and whatever, and just got right into it. But if you need a minute, you can just sit down and relax at that time.
Yeah. I think you get an extra 15 minutes technically if you skip the instructions. It shouldn't matter for step one. I remember our medicine shelf exam had fill in the blanks on it though. So we probably should have read those instructions because we weren't ready for that. But yeah, if you want more break time, how did y'all do your breaks? I did like 2 blocks, break, 2 blocks, break, 2, and then 1, I think, with like a full Monster drink in between all of them. What did y'all do? What was your kind of thought process of test day?
I kind of just wanted to honestly just get it over with. So I came in and I did like 4 blocks straight. And then I took about like 15 minutes. And then I think I did another block or 2. It took 10 minutes and then I finished the rest. I didn't do anything crazy. Like I didn't like skip meals or anything. I think the best advice is still to keep the same schedule the day before, instead of like switching things around. Obviously like get rest, don't go crazy like studying I think the day before also. You want to do some light review, things like that. If you have like Anki, you want to just just go over some of those cards, that's fine, but I wouldn't go too crazy because you do want that like mental rest. It's really like a marathon on that day. It's like 8-9 hours you're in there. So yeah, but like for the day itself, like I wouldn't suggest obviously packing anything like food wise, like anything, I don't know, like spicy or anything crazy. Just keep it simple, like make a sandwich or something like that. You don't have to eat like a lot. And in fact, maybe you shouldn't if you do get like, test anxiety and you get nauseous and stuff easily. You can just snack instead as well. Just take like, some protein bars or granola bars or whatever, anything like that. But if you need the breaks, just use the breaks. Like you don't have to not use them just to get out, which is kind of what I did, but I don't advise that anybody that you should do that because I wanted to just get out of there. And you probably will feel like that when you get in there, but just gauge yourself to see how you're feeling. If you got a headache or something like that, pack some Advil or something like that, which is actually what I did because sometimes I get like headaches in exams. So pack some like meds or whatever you need like that. Yeah, I think that's otherwise it's kind of just like taking any other exams. Like when you do your practice exams before on UWorld, like treat it like an actual exam, like try to mimic that setting without, having any books and stuff around, stick to the time and just treat it like it's an actual thing.
Yeah, I think I had like a Lunchable or like half a Lunchable. So just eat a light lunch and like bring a protein bar or whatever. Yeah. Okay, well, Savannah, you want to tell us?
I made sure I like got up and took like a 5-minute break maybe, or like 2 or 3 minutes, I don't know, just to get up and like go walk like outside out of like the testing center and maybe like get a sip of water or something, and then like just take a breather and then go back in. I don't know, I was like debating what I wanted to do with like the break time, and I just like saw a lot of advice of like that it'd be important to get up at least just like for a few minutes, even if it's just like to get up and walk out and then walk back in, just to like get your mind away from the screen, the computer for like a second, I don't know, kind of like to reboost. So I just tried doing that, and then after I think it was either after block 3 or 4, I took like a longer break, like a lunch break kind of, so it's probably like 15 minutes, I think. I didn't like eat a big lunch either. I think I brought like, I don't know, bars and like a snack, maybe like a cheese stick and like, I don't know, maybe a beef stick. I don't even remember honestly what I brought. I wasn't that hungry. Honestly, I felt like for me, it actually went by like pretty quick. Like, I don't know. I think I was just like in the zone taking the exam, and it's like the biggest exam of our life up to this point. And it just went by really fast for me. I mean, towards the end, probably around like 6 or block like 5 or something like that, after you got over the hump, I could feel it a little bit more that I'd been there forever. And then I was like the last person in the testing center. Like so many people had come in and out like to take an exam and stuff. But after I wasn't expecting to feel the way I felt, but like everyone I've asked, or all of my friends, they all felt the same. I felt like nothing, almost like numb. Like I like, didn't even know how to feel. Like I thought I would be like really excited that I finished, but I was just like, I don't even know like what just happened. And then you have to like play the waiting game and wait for your score. So it's kind of just like, I don't know, it's weird after you finish. It's like exhausting, but you don't know how to feel. But just walk out of there like confident in yourself, and walk in there confident too. Like really start working on your confidence if you're going to take the exam and you have your date. That was like a lot of it for me. I had thought about pushing it back. But like I talked to my dad, and I don't know, I just like went off the confidence of like being an IEA and doing really well in basic sciences and my foundation that I had before. I wasn't scoring that well on NBMEs. So I kind of just had to like gauge myself and like gauge my confidence. And so I just went into it like really trying to change my mindset. And I think that had a really good benefit with it. And some people are saying it's like 50% of the exam, you know. Just being confident in yourself and trusting your gut. Don't change your questions, like your answer choices last minute. That's such a tough thing for me to do, but I've really tried to work on it, because you know so many things deep down that even if you can't like bring it to your like conscious by yourself, like you're like you like already subconsciously know. So it's like for whatever reason that you chose to pick that answer, even if you're just guessing, like I would just try and not change your answer, and yeah, just be confident. Guys got this.
Yes. So if you look at the analytics on UWorld, it'll tell you how many questions in the bank you went from incorrect to correct, correct to incorrect. Most people go correct to incorrect. So if you're one of those that's doing that, you should really think twice before you change your answers. What else? Oh, I thought about this before too. So when I do UWorld, I like to do it in tutor mode, which means I read the question and then I get the answer immediately. I like it like that because I just thought about everything, right? So it's very fresh in my mind, versus if you do it timed, you have to go back and you're like, what was this question about? Now, the cons of that is that you really don't have a clock. But if you manually in your mind try to keep yourself to about a minute a question, you should be fine. That'll give you time to go back, check your marked ones, maybe go back and check the whole thing again. But if you try to keep it a minute a question, now if you do it on tutor mode, you have to do that manually. So you need to watch the clock. They still give you a clock at the bottom of the screen that you can watch. It turns off when you're checking the answers. So it just actually calculates your time to take the test, but you should keep that in mind. What else? As Savannah said, yes, it's not just a long test, it's very emotional. So you do walk out and you're kind of like in a state of shock, but and then you obviously have to wait for a few weeks to get your score back. But yeah, so Sean, what did you do test day? You probably ran a couple miles to get there, huh?
So just to kind of go off what you were saying, pay attention to that section on UWorld that says incorrect to correct, correct to incorrect, because I'm one of those people that I usually change it the other way. I usually change incorrect to correct. Very rarely, I kind of make it a rule that like once I put something, I don't change it unless I have like 100% reason to change it. And I can like physically look at the question and tell myself like the reason I'm changing it is because of this. So pay attention and kind of see what kind of person you are in terms of that. But going back to test day, I did similar to what Savannah did. So I did 2 blocks, a break, I think another 2, and then took like a bigger break and then did the remaining, I think 3 at the end. I was the complete opposite in terms of food. I packed like a 3-course meal and ate it all like during my lunch break. I was like starving by the middle of it. But again, I still think it's important to take the breaks, even if you feel like you don't need it, because the worst thing, or in my opinion, like the last thing you want to have happen is to do 2 blocks, feel like, okay, I'm fine, start the 3rd one. And then like Akash was saying, get like a headache in the middle of the 3rd one. So in my opinion, I think 2 is a good number. Do 2 blocks and then take a break, even if you don't feel like you need it. Just hang out around the testing center. You want to go get some fresh air, get some fresh air. I know if you do it in New York, for example, you're like 20 something flights up. So I don't know if you have time to like go downstairs and come back out, but there's that. And then for your lunch break, just kind of take it easy, have a bite to eat, nothing crazy like me. And then the last 3 blocks, you can, during that last block, you can kind of push yourself a little bit to just kind of get it done. And then as we were all kind of saying, you get this feeling, I got this feeling of like emptiness right after. I felt like there was a void in my life. Like I had this great purpose and now it was just kind of over and I just had to go home and just like continue whatever it was that I was doing. So and then last thing was the day before, I did not study a single thing. The morning of, I always, during dedicated, I like to keep track of stuff that if I study too early, I know I'm not going to remember. So there's very specific things for step 1 that if you study them too early, in my opinion, there's just no way you're going to remember them. Like, for example, when they talk about like the child development milestones, that's something that is so specific that like you have to remember the difference between 6 months and 9 months and 18 months and stuff like that. So that's a very good thing that you can mark to take a look at maybe like a week or 2 before, and then something to look at the morning of. Because if you memorize it, you know, at the beginning of your dedicated and never look at it again, odds are you're not going to remember it too well. So that was another thing that I did. And then I'm very big on Anki as well. I did my Anki the morning of, and, you know, never looked back. So.
Yeah, routines build confidence, right? So stay in a routine. You should practice waking up whatever time you I think, do you have to take it at 8? Some people took it at noon. Regardless, whatever time you're taking it, you should plan to wake up at that time and start studying, right? This is common sense, right? Routines are good. Pooja, you have thoughts?
Definitely. Sorry, I'm gonna just interject here for
Sure.
a second. Like we were saying earlier, confidence is your best friend for step 1. If your scores have been like fine or promising, don't like you should be walking into that test center that morning of, even if you like have doubts, that's fine, but you should be walking in there saying, I'm gonna kill this no matter what. Right? Don't let the test taking anxiety get the best of you. You know, it's a big exam, yes, but it's like, I thought of it as I'm doing 7 blocks of UWorld today. It's not step 1. It doesn't make a difference to me. It's 40 questions by 7. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it on my living room couch or I'm doing it at the test center. So confidence is key.
Yeah, easier said than done, granted, but yes, of course, you should go into this with confidence. If you got this far, you can pass step, of course. Hey, Quinn, what's going on, man? You want to introduce yourself?
What's going on, guys? So sorry. I had some Wi-Fi issues, which is why I'm at my friendly neighborhood public library, long and bold. But hey, what's going on, you guys? Some of you might remember me from my time on the island. If not, I am the president for the cohort that's going into clinicals. So shout out to our May-June clinical year cohort. Some of you might not know this because I've been a little quiet about my recent updates, but I was originally placed in LA, but now I'll be staying here in New Jersey. So shout out to you guys.
Oh, nice, dude. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll be here
Where
at
at?
Hackensack starting in August. Just some logistical
Nice.
things. Yeah.
Quinn, I'm gonna be a resident there.
That's your boss now,
Oh,
Quinn.
Okay. Lucia, we're gonna get to know each other then. I need all
Yeah.
the tips and tricks. But yeah,
You
guys,
could do
that's
all our
pretty much me.
HPIs for her.
Yeah. So I can't wait to work with you guys. It's gonna be a great 2 years together.
Okay, we'll just pick up where we were at. So Pooja, what were your thoughts? Or what is your thought process for studying?
Yeah,
Anki?
so I kind of took a similar approach to Sean during breaks. I pretty much took a break as often as possible. I think I did my first 2 sections back to back. And then after that, I took like a 5 to 10 minute break after every other section. I brought a bunch of snacks, like a couple granola bars, a couple bananas, crackers, a cheese stick, and I had like 2 to 3 bites of food during every single break and like a sip or 2 of water. And I used the bathroom even if I didn't have to, because I did not want to get uncomfortable at all during my blocks. And like, God forbid I get hungry or really have to pee. So I made sure I took care of all of that during every single break. Just some things logistically, I want to make sure you guys all know. You guys get 45 minutes of break time automatically. And if you skip the tutorial, I know Brady kind of touched on this, you get the extra 15 minutes added, which is a total of 1 hour break time. But something that not a lot of people know is if you finish your sections early, that time also gets added to your break time. So if you finish the section with like 6 minutes left, your break time goes up by another 6 minutes. So I'm the type of person that finished all my sections early. That's just how I take tests. I hate going back through my work once I've already finished it. So I was never worried about having like running out of break time. So if you're the type of person who finishes sections early and you're sitting there and just forcing yourself to stare at it because you don't know what else to do, it's totally okay to end the section early and just add that time to your break time and just like get up and move during that time. Some other people mentioned you can totally walk outside of the test center during your break time. I know that's different than other tests like the MCAT and like other tests you might have taken in the past. So that's good. And you also can use whatever you want that's in your locker. So if you bring first aid and leave it in your locker, you're allowed to look at it during your breaks. Personally, I would not recommend that. I think it causes too much anxiety and you're just going to look up answers and see ones you got wrong and freak out. But I'm just telling you guys that now so you can make that decision now instead of finding out that that's a possibility in July before your exam and then freaking out about if you should bring it or not. Then besides that, test day was like pretty smooth for me, no complications. But if you are someone who gets a lot of test taking anxiety, you can actually schedule free 120 to take at the testing center. I personally didn't do it, but it gives you, especially if you haven't been to Prometric in a while, or if you've never been there, if you're not from the US, it gives you an opportunity to see your testing center in person, go through the process, like check-in process and whatever they do to scan you in and sit at the computers and take a practice test. So I think that's a really great experience as well. And they have more info about how to set that up online. So if you're an anxious test taker, I highly, highly recommend that. But that's
So a few points I want to reiterate that Pooja said that's very important. Just get up and take the breaks, right? Just something about standing up, it's fine. But when you're up, just go to the bathroom and try. Like, there's nothing worse than sitting there and, you know, all that. So that's a very good point to be made. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of same as what Pooja was saying is when you take your breaks, make sure, you know, even if you only take like 2 bites of a granola bar, at least it's something. I actually took them as like a preemptive thing. So I didn't even want to risk getting a headache.
I think you broke up, Nick. Can you say that again?
So for my test day, I took kind of aspirin in the morning just as a preemptive, so I didn't worry about getting a headache. But I kind of took my breaks the same as Pooja, where you get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, eat a couple bites of a granola bar. But I took every single break after every block. I just got up, stood up, stretched my legs. I mean, there was only like 2-3 minutes for most of them, but even that just kind of helped me reset so I could go back and do it. And I did that for both step 1 and step 2.
Yeah, you can like kind of calm down, you know, just like relax a little bit. You kind of, you know, your heart rate's up and everything. So it's good to just get those breaks in. Quinn actually just took steps, so he has some good insight. Tell us, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think definitely when it came to breaks in particular, it was a good time to just sit and clear your head. You know, when I got to the test and after all these, you know, months of studying, it's hard to really just say, okay, I'm here and I need to really show what I got. So being able to walk in the hallways, grab a bite to eat, you know, as some of us have said so far, just use every single one of your breaks to just reset yourself because it is a marathon of a test and it does get a little tiring and you want to be able to give 100% for every block. So for me, you guys work together, use your breaks, and honestly, reach out to us upperclassmen because I definitely reached out to, you know, our MS3, MS4s. So it's up to us to return the favor, and I'll be happy to give you guys any tips and tricks that you guys might need. My line's always open for y'all.
Okay, one last thing Pooja mentioned, I told myself I wasn't going to look up stuff in the breaks, and then I had my phone and like, you're like, well, let me just check one, and then you end up checking a bunch. So just don't do that because there's no point, okay? You're not going to see that question. Likely won't see that topic again. Don't even turn your phone on in the breaks. There's no point, all right? You'll be fine. Okay, I think we kind of got to that. got through step. One last thing to say, when you first start out, make a schedule and stick to it, okay? If you have 6 weeks, lay everything out. You can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help, but just make sure you're doing enough questions a day. If you want to try Amboss, I'm sure they still do those 7-day free trials. That's good, but you're going to want to do UWorld questions, and you want to intermix those MBMEs in between. A lot of people, most people, they do plateau at a point, okay? Because it's so much information that you're covering. So if your MBMEs are kind of tapering, or they're not, they're plateauing, it happens to everyone. You just have to keep push through. So your goal should be, number one, you have to pass the exam. Number two, you need to try to take it by the deadline. Okay, so if you can't manage that, it's okay. Yeah, it happens to lots of people, but you should try to jump right into studying after term 5. That way you can hit that 6 week mark. Okay. All right, let's move on. Transitioning paperwork. Can you talk about a general timeline for completing health paperwork needed to be in clinicals? Okay. I think the easy answer is do it as soon as possible. I did not. I assumed I would be able to get it done. Some of my titers were low, so I had to get booster shots, and it's just a pain. So if you can do that soon and not have to worry, that's ideal. Does anybody have any advice on that?
Yes. Health forms are my greatest enemy in life. So this was the biggest headache of setting up clinicals for me. I don't know if it was just bad luck or whatever, but if you are like in Grenada, you can get your vaccines at the clinic. They're not crazy expensive either. I'm from Canada, so like I normally don't pay for this kind of stuff, but a lot of vaccines, even in Canada, you end up paying for. But for those of you who are from the States, I guess it depends on your insurance. But I would recommend, if you are in Grenada, just check your titers. I don't remember how much it was, but I remember asking and it wasn't crazy. I ended up putting it off. And then when I got home, after you take step, they'll send you like once you like get your result and that you passed, I think I had about like 10 days to kind of finish everything. And I had, at that point, after I passed step, I went and checked my titers and I went through my vaccine schedule and stuff like that. And I was missing a whole bunch of stuff. And so I was running around to clinics and stuff like that. So if you want, you could reach out to us. We can send you like what it is that you need. And like, even if you're not going to check your titers, at least look and see if you have those vaccines within like X amount of time, because it's kind of a pain to not know that you need a vaccine. And then all of a sudden they're telling you have like 7 days to get a vaccine and you can't find it, or it's out of stock or something else ridiculous. So I know I'm kind of blabbing on about a topic that's not very important, but like it becomes very stressful when they're telling you have a certain number of days to do it. So
yeah, it's a problem when you take the exam and then you're like, I have like a few weeks, I can get this done in that time after step 1 in between clinicals. And then like Sean was saying, you have to get something done like titers. I actually had mine done in Grenada. I don't think it was more than $100 for like, I had needed like Hep B and varicella or something booster. It wasn't more than 100 US down there. So just get it done. Just get it done so that you don't have to worry about it. Yes. Okay, good. Can you talk about the turnaround time you had in finding out your rotation sites, places to live? If you take it by the deadline, you should have like 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, at least. When are you supposed to start? August 5th? Is that?
Someone can chime in and correct me, but it's like mid-August. Yeah, 15.
August 15th.
Well,
Okay.
Sorry, I was
yeah.
just gonna say the information that they gave us is kind of vague. So there's 2 hospitals in Jersey. You correct me if I'm wrong. Hackensack and Jersey Shore has an August, I think 15th or 16th start date, and they only take students in once a year. So students who are interested in getting placed in Jersey Shore or Hackensack, they recommended to take step no later than July 2nd, so that they can channel this in appropriately. Otherwise, like the other start dates, I think just vary between like late August or sometimes September, but the overarching theme right now is that July 2nd and August 15th is like the one good start date.
Okay, so you should, unless you have logistical problems with the titers or whatnot, you should have 2 or 3 weeks, which is a long time to wait for your score and also not a lot of time to find a place to live. So you need to be proactive about it. Hackensack is a great hospital. Pooja could speak on that. I think the area is great. We both live there in the Hackensack area. So if you're trying to hit that deadline, I mean, that's a good reason to do it. It's a good place to be at. Does anybody want to add on that? What their thoughts were that, I mean, you just need 2 weeks to find a place to live. Yeah. Ron?
Yeah, so the step scores, if I'm not mistaken, the reports come out the 2 Wednesdays after you take it.
Yeah, it
So
varies. It's usually
it varies,
it's either
but
that second Wednesday or third Wednesday. Yeah.
yeah, so if you guys are taking it by the second, like it seems like the latest you guys would get would be the 19th. And if you're starting on the 15th, that leaves you kind of almost what, 1, 2, 3, 4,
A little more than
almost
3
5,
weeks. Yeah.
almost, yeah, it's a
Okay.
good amount of time to find a place. I don't know about Jersey specifically, but like New York, for example, New York would probably be very hard to find an apartment, whether you have a month or whether you have 2 weeks or whatever the timeline is. But it's really kind of location dependent. And then on top of that, once you find, like, finding a place is not the problem. Finding the right place is, I guess, a problem if you're going to be kind of specific in terms of like, oh, I want it for this amount of money, or I need, you know, this specific location. But it's doable. I wouldn't stress too much about finding a place. Just kind of move with the hits, and you know, life sorts itself out.
And you need, sorry, Pooja, yeah, sorry, you need to think about things like living in the city. You may need roommates and stuff like that. So like, that's a logistical thing. Sorry, Pooja, what were you going to say?
That's literally what I was gonna say. If you're gonna live in New York or New Jersey, I know Brady lives on his own, but like pretty much everyone else in that area, you have to get a roommate. It is not feasible on the like living expenses that SGU gives you. You're gonna need a roommate.
Yeah, I'll just be straightforward. Like I pay $2,070 per month. It's a studio. It's very nice in the Hackensack area, but with loans, that's pretty tight. So Pooja, y'all split it. What do you pay? What do you pay?
It was just under 1,200 without parking, and then with the parking spot, I ended up paying about $1,250 a month.
So yeah, so with a roommate, and Pooja has one roommate or had one roommate. So yeah, that works. I mean, you'll save a lot of money that way. So think about these things ahead of time, especially in New York. Yeah, Savannah, you want to talk? I know the rent there is crazy.
Yeah, I live by myself, but it's definitely not feasible like off of the refund. I mean, I run out of my money like very quickly. I mean, I could probably like budget it a lot better, but luckily like my dad helps me a lot, and he'll pay for my rent most of the time. But I'm living like a block away from Brooklyn Hospital Center, which has been really nice. My dad was like, safety and proximity is key. He was worried about me going like to New York alone. And so he's just like that. But I mean, my rent is like insane. I mean, it's like 1,000 more than like yours, Brady. So like, but like I live in like it's like a luxury, like nice building. I know there's like a building like right next to me called Caesura, I think. And they're like smaller studios, and it like the studios, they have like a pull out, like one of those beds that like pulls out from the wall. And then you can put it back up, but they're pretty nice. And like, I think they're paying more around like what you're paying, Brady, for like 2,700. So I don't know. I know a lot of people that actually live alone in New York. But a lot of the people, they'll live more so in like Bed-Stuy, like the rent isn't as bad over there, like in Bed-Stuy or like Crown Heights area and stuff like that. It's just a little like east of downtown Brooklyn, but the area is like not as safe and nice, I guess, because in downtown Brooklyn, it's like basically like a small city. But there's like ways around it, and a lot of people will be like subleasing their apartments and stuff. So you could look on Facebook websites and like the Facebook SGU Clinicals page, and maybe see people that are like looking for roommates or like trying to sublease their apartment. But yeah, it's pretty tough in New York. Everything in New York is like crazy expensive. Like even groceries, like any basic things that you would think is more expensive in New York. So yeah, just be aware.
Yeah, a few good points there. If you're not part of the clinical page, definitely join that. You can post on there. I'm sure somebody's rotated at that site. It's actually, there's a ton of people that have graduated that are super helpful on there. So make sure you get on there. And also, but keep in mind, like Savannah doesn't have to have a car note because she's in the city. Like, but in Jersey, though I pay less, I also have a car note. Like you need to have a car to get around in Jersey. Nick, do you want to talk about the West Coast in case we have anybody?
Yeah, so I was in at O'Connor, which is kind of the Bay Area in San Jose, and it's pretty expensive there as well. I think my rent was about 2,000. I think I looked the other day and the apartment was going for almost 3 now. I kind of got a little bit of a COVID rate because it was still going on when I was there. But you definitely need a car in California. There's not really public transportation. I know someone that didn't have one, but it wasn't the easiest getting around. So I'd definitely recommend it. And then I just used apartments.com to find my place.
Yeah, there's apartments.com. There's furniturefinder.com, though I don't, Pooja, I don't know. I remember asking you about this. Furnished
Furnished
places are very good.
Finder. Yeah.
Furnished Finder, but it's very
it's a-
hard.
Yeah, it's a
Go
travel
ahead.
nursing place. I know Nick's actually used it, I think, during 4th year. So you could probably talk about it more than I can. But from what I've heard really good reviews. Most of the people you live with, it's like a little less shady than Airbnb because it's people who are like typically healthcare workers who are renting out to other healthcare workers a lot of the times.
Nick?
Yeah, so I used Furnish Finder and I think mostly Furnish Finder. I used Airbnb once for 4th year because I was moving around every in 4th year. And yeah, I would say Furnish Finder is a really good thing. It saves you on a lot of the fees that Airbnb charges because it's really just a platform for people to post things that they're renting out. It might be a little easier to get scammed. I luckily never did on Furnish Finder, so just kind of be careful who you're dealing with. Make sure they seem normal. They FaceTime you and show you the place and stuff like that. But I overall had a really great experience using Furnished Finder, and it's super easy to use.
Quinn, have you had any luck in Jersey yet? Have you looked at anything?
Yeah, well, I did a little bit of searching for the brief stint I had while I was doing my LA visit. Apartments are hard to come by, especially, in the winter class or in the fall class rather. You have a little bit of time, so when I took STEP, there was a gap where I just didn't have enough resources or enough time to like find the apartment. But then I came back here to Jersey, I can either live at home, which is a convenience, I save money, I can use my parents' car, or I can just start the cycle over finding an apartment closer to Hackensack. So I'm in the situation of trying to weigh pros and cons. So some of you guys might be facing that same situation of, okay, I might be facing a move, do I rent, do I stay at home, or what the case may be. So that's my current battle, just to say I'm going right there with you guys. I haven't had any luck yet, but cross your fingers, maybe I can find something.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is you just have to be proactive about it. If you think you're going to be in New York, you should be thinking about who your roommates should be, if that needs to be a thing, or like if you're in Jersey or wherever, if you need a car, like these are things you need to be thinking about alongside, not instead of studying, but alongside in your free time. Like start looking at apartments.com just to have an idea, because the last thing you want to have to do when you're doing clinicals is worry about your budget and all this stuff and how you're going to pay for stuff, because it is generally tight.
Also, just like as soon as you get your placement, start looking at apartments. Everyone gave me that advice for residency as well, and I did not. And I'm like looking at apartments now, and a lot of the places that are posted online are taken because everyone who matched at the same place for residency is taking up the spots. And the same thing's going to kind of happen when you have rotations. Like at Hackensack, there's 48 students who are placed there, and I would say at least like 50 to 60% are probably going to move into the Hackensack area. Some of them might stay with their parents if they already live there, or might choose to live a little bit further out. But most of the people I rotated with during 3rd year lived pretty much within walking distance of the hospital. So those apartments are going to go quick. So make sure as soon as you find out where you're going to go and you're sure it's not going to change, as in you've gotten your score back and you've passed, start looking at apartments.
Yes, for sure. So be proactive about it. Start looking, as soon as you get your score, so you can, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Okay. And obviously reach out to us. We live there, so we can tell you right where to go. Okay, great. Can you talk a little bit about your clinical site, pros and cons? Akash, what do you think about St. Joe's in general?
The loaded question. So, I mean, there's a lot of pros. I think the hospital itself has like a lot of residency programs. So I think it's really beneficial to us because I think in most of our rotations, we get exposed to all the subspecialties as well. And it's nice to kind of have that if, you want to go into something that's not like primary care, for example. Also the area that this hospital's in, there's like a big subset of population over here, so you get exposed to a lot of different pathologies, versus like, I don't know, being in a hospital in a different city where you wouldn't get like, like a lot of the meat that we read about, a lot of the stuff, and you might not like see all that stuff in the city. That's another pro. That's all I could think of right now, but I mean, someone else can go ahead. Or you can go ahead with some more pros and cons.
Sure. I mean, look, I plan to apply here. Like I want to do, I would do surgery here. It may not be my number one choice, but I enjoyed it here. All the, I think it's touch and go. Like every rotation site, every site is going to have some pros and cons within different, rotations, right? Because it kind of depends on the course director. They have a lot of input to how they grade you and stuff. So if somebody's like they had a bad experience at a certain hospital, it may just be because of that specific rotation. So don't judge. It's not like a holistic thing of the hospital. It does vary from individual rotations. So some rotations here are better than others. Everybody loves pediatrics here. We get to see a lot of stuff in the NICU and whatnot. Surgery, just everywhere, you're going to work long hours. Like people have a tough time with that. It is what it is. Like, so it tends to be a more stressful thing. But I think St. Joe's is up there. Like, I mean, they have their cons, but like, it's nothing, it's nothing to shy away from. Savannah, you want to talk about Brooklyn?
Yeah, Brooklyn Hospital Center. It's honestly, I like enjoyed my time there. It's basically like the SGU IMG hub of New York. I would say I think St. Joe's in Jersey, like it's pretty much like that. Like you guys have a lot of students, and that's one of the issues at Brooklyn Hospital. It's a pretty small hospital, honestly. And it's a nonprofit. It's not like a level like 1 trauma or anything like that. So like our ED, like and our surgery rotation, we just didn't like get to see that much. Like it wasn't that cool of stuff. I think we got to see a lot of different like diseases and stuff, and that was pretty cool. The patient population is pretty much like African American, Hispanics. And then in OB, like they're coming back from being hit hard with COVID and stuff, and they were talking about how like the OB, they just like lost a lot of patients, I think, during COVID, and there just weren't that many people that were giving birth and stuff. So in OB, that was probably my most hands-on rotation though, out of all of them. And I actually enjoyed it, but that was pretty grueling with hours too. I almost think it was worse than surgery for us at Brooklyn Hospital. But overall, like Brooklyn Hospital, it's a really chill hospital. Like you don't learn that much. The thing is like the residents, the attendings, they're not like the best teachers. Like there are going to be like a few that like are really good teachers and you appreciate it a lot, but it's almost like, oh, you appreciate it so much because like it's so almost like kind of rare. It's just kind of like they tell you in rotations too. They'll just be like, oh, it is what you make of it, which is true. Like I would say for probably all wherever you are, but yeah, I think you just have to push a little bit more. Like if you want to get a little bit more experience, like hands-on, a lot of it feels like we're just there as medical students and we're doing like busy work. So I know a lot of students like get annoyed about that, but it's also nice because it's not as grueling as other hospitals and their like restrictions and guidelines and time, hours and stuff. Like I've never had to do a 24-hour shift. I thought that was like illegal.
None? It should be. No, you think you need sleep. You actually don't. We have to do 6 24-hour shifts in surgery and 2 in OBGYN. But we did do 6, right? Yeah. Was it 6, 5? Oh, something like that. I don't know.
Like an overnight, and like I didn't even have to stay 12 hours. So
that's nice. Yeah, no, but here at St. Joe's though, but we get to get our hands dirty. Like they'll let you deliver the baby and all that.
Like you get to do a lot more.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good, but again, you're going to get worked a lot, but you learn on the job too. Sean, what do you think so far?
Yeah, so I'm at Kings County in Brooklyn. One thing I would say to those of you who are considering Kings or any hospital really, check and see if the hospital you're going to has other med students there that are not from SGU. That's a problem with Kings specifically because they're affiliated with SUNY Downstate or State University of New York. So certain rotations, you'll have med students from other schools on the same rotation as you. And that can be a problem for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into, but just something to keep in mind. I mean, you don't want to be competing with other med students. You want, the attending or the residents to focus on you, so that you can learn as much as possible. But I think the question of, what do I think of the site? It really depends how you're asking it. If you're asking me in terms of like, am I going to have time to study, or am I going to have a lot of free time versus am I going to learn a lot? And those are kind of two different questions. I think in New York, really, you learn a lot if you put in a lot of work. If you're really going out of your way to the residents and showing them that like you really, you have a good foundation and you're asking them questions and you want to get involved with procedures and you want to scrub into surgeries and things like that, there's ample opportunity for experience. If you want to lay back and kind of do the bare minimum, I think there are opportunities for that on certain rotations. But like Brady was saying, every rotation is different. Just because you're at one hospital and their OB rotation is not amazing, their pediatrics rotation could be awesome, right? So every hospital department is different. Every hospital department, like for example, like Kings County, like I'm just saying this like this is inaccurate, but let's say the psych department is not IMG friendly, or the surgery department is not IMG friendly. The OB department might be super IMG friendly, and the program director or the preceptor might be super nice and give you good hours. So take everything with a grain of salt. If you do have questions, you can ask them on that clinical page that Brady was talking about. But ultimately, yeah, just keep in mind that no matter where you go, your surgery rotation and possibly your OBGYN rotation, you're going to work some decent hours. I don't think it really depends where you are.
Yeah,
And
for
by
sure.
decent,
And
I
look,
mean bad, not actually decent.
if you stand in the corner and are not interested, I promise you they won't involve you. They're not going to come get you and like do this. All right. So if it means you need to step out of your comfort zone, then you need to do so, especially if you're interested in that field. All right. You need to try to, even if you know the answer to some of these questions, ask the residents. Tell me, what do you think about this? Open-ended questions. At least show that you care a little bit. Pooja, disclaimer, she now works at that hospital. She's a doctor there, but tell me about Hackensack.
Not yet. I have not signed my
Not yet.
contract yet, but I will. So personally, obviously, I had a good experience at Hackensack. I also do have a lot of ties to the area, but I think compared to a lot of the hospitals, especially in New York, Hackensack is super, super, super organized. Like everything that they do is methodical. They've had a system in place for years and it works really well. And they follow it. So like you're gonna have the same, one of the things I really liked about it is you're gonna rotate with the same students throughout all your rotations. I think that was nice because I got pretty close to the people I was rotating with and I still keep in touch with a bunch of them. So that was really nice. And I think for the most part, I really enjoyed all the rotations. You definitely learn a lot. And even though there are other medical students there, it doesn't feel like most of the time that there's like too many students at any given time. So you have other students from their medical school, like Hackensack's medical school, and then you also have PA students from from Seton Hall's PA school, and then like you'll get an odd NP student here and there, but not too many. With that said, we have different clerkship directors than the Hackensack students. So they don't really coordinate, but it usually works out pretty well. They split up the students evenly between the teams. And the only rotations where I really worked heavily with Hackensack students was surgery and OB. Besides that, for IM, you work on separate inpatient teams. So you probably will not be with any of them unless it's like a sub-I or a fourth year student. For peds, we actually did work together. I forgot about that. But again, like it's IM, there's maybe 20 patients on the team. There's like more than enough for each student to be able to see 2 or 3 of them without being any issues. A lot of the residents are SGU grads. It's decreased a bit in recent years, but especially when I was rotating there are a lot of SGU grads as well as attendings who went to SGU. So you're never gonna have anyone who looks down on you for like being an IMG. And SGU has been at Hackensack way longer than their medical school has. We've had students rotating there forever, and their medical school is only about 5 years old. So you're never going to find an attending or resident who talks down at you because you're an IMG, and I think that's really important. Because I know like there are SGU students out there, clinical sites who have that experience, and I've never experienced that at Hackensack. The hours are pretty intense, I would say, compared to some other hospitals. We do not do any 24s on any of our rotations, but like on peds, for example, you're there from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. basically every single day, and some days you're there 7 to 7. So you're pulling close to like 60 hours a week. It averages out because you have some other lighter weeks, but it's pretty intense. Something else about Hackensack, for the past 2 years, they did not give a winter break, so you do not really get off for the holidays. You get, I think, like Christmas Day and Christmas Eve off, and like New Year's Eve and New Year's. You get Thanksgiving off, 4th of July, and Memorial Day weekend. And I think those are the only holidays you get off like the entire year. You don't get any weeks off. So that's something to keep in mind. Besides that, I mean, I really like Hackensack. The preceptors are like on top of everything. The coordinators are on top of everything. And I feel like it'll be like a very seamless experience if you're there.
Did you get a week off to study for peds?
We also do not get a week off to study for peds. We do get,
okay.
We get like a random week off during OB. That's a float week. So it's basically if there's any topic that you felt like you didn't get enough exposure to, you can pick up extra cases in that week. Most people choose not to, but that is the purpose of the float week in OB. And it's like the hours are balanced out because our OB hours and other weeks are kind of longer. So it gives you a bit of like a chance to catch your breath. And the clerkship directors, for the most part, are all really fantastic too.
See, that's where that's an example how it varies. So Akash and I had a week off to study for peds. I guess they just decided to do that because they wanted to. And like Pooja had a light week for OB. We do not have that for OB at all. Like, yeah. So it just really depends. And like, again, just because somebody had a bad experience in one rotation at one place doesn't mean the whole hospital's bad. You know, sometimes it's just a clerkship director.
Something else I forgot to mention that I just want to add in that I really like about Hackensack is we do a lot of subspecialties throughout all of our rotations. So when we're on surgery, we do anesthesia. I did ped surgery, which is my elective. We do minimally invasive, vascular. Some people do urology, ortho. Like I think I only spent 4 weeks on general surgery throughout the entire thing. And then for IM, we do time in the ICU, we do cardiology, we do geriatrics, we do nephrology, like a couple days, we do infectious disease a couple days. And we only had like 2 actual floor weeks. So I think that like you get a lot of variation, which I think is really important as well. Like same thing on OB, you do like OB, MFM, gyn surgery. So it's like a lot of variability in all of the rotations, which I think is really good. I think psych's the only one that there isn't that much variation. You have like 1 outpatient week, and then the rest of the time you're pretty much seeing consults.
And so you guys know historically January classes end up at St. Joe's, but since y'all are August, y'all would likely get Hackensack. So that's good. It's obviously a great hospital. Nick, you want to talk about where you were at?
Yeah, so I was at O'Connor in California, and there is a residency program. There's a Stanford Family Medicine residency program, but you don't really interact with them at all. You mostly work directly with attendings, and there are other medical schools there. I think a couple DO programs, but you also don't interact with them at all. They work with a different subset of doctors. And so at O'Connor, the hours, they all vary by, what the specialty is. But we did no 24 hours or anything like that. And when you work directly with the attendings, you really get to know them well, and they get to know you. So I think that was also one of the strengths of my UAS application was letters of rec from attendings that knew me. And I can still text them to this day and ask them a question if I wanted to, and they would be happy to answer. So I think that's a good strength of O'Connor. And the hours aren't bad because the attendings want to go home too. They have families and stuff, and you're not stuck there with residents doing random work. But kind of at the end of the day, you're placed wherever SGU places you. Unfortunately, it's really hard to move. I know there are special circumstances that some people have changed their rotation spot, but for the most part, you go where they assign you. And kind of my big advice for rotations and stuff is when you're there and you get asked a question, just make an educated guess. They know you're not going to be right 100% of the time. You're probably going to be wrong like 75% of the time, but they just want to see that you put in that effort and that you're just trying your best and that you're learning, so that if they asked you it again, you'd know it the next time.
Okay, and then look, when you get your placement, obviously reach out, post on the Facebook page, and somebody's been there probably, so they'll be able to help. Okay, let me answer this question before we move on. How are loans distributed or dispersed, and how soon after placement do we get them? It's okay, so it's broken up into 16 weeks of rotations. Every 16 weeks of rotations, you get another check, right? But that means if you do 12 weeks and then you have a month off and then do another 4 weeks, like it's only 16 weeks of your work life. So if there's bridge time, you're not getting any loan money for that time. Okay, so you need to think about that. Obviously, it's similar for step 1, step 2. Like you're not going to get any loan money dedicated to that time when you're not actually working. So it's 16 weeks of actual work time. How long did it take? I don't remember. Probably like a week or 2 before. Does anybody remember?
So I started the online electives and they told us that if you started those electives, you should receive your loans earlier, because that means you started clinicals once you pass your first elective, but it didn't really make a difference for me. I still received my loans at the time I would have with rotations, which was a week before rotation started.
Okay, so plan for that. Say about a week before you should get that, but you need to budget it because a lot of people are going to have little breaks just because of how the schedule lays. And so yeah, it's kind of a pain, to be completely honest, working through that. Okay, good. I think so we're moving down the timeline. We're kind of getting far away. I know you guys still have steps, so we'll kind of go through this a little bit faster. How did your study habits change between basic science and clinical years? Akash, you want to answer that one?
So I think my study habits are probably still the same. Like like I mentioned before, Anki was my main thing, even in my first 2 years in SGUs. I've stuck by that. Like I swear by it. It's literally like the only thing that I do other than UWorld. So obviously the difference is we don't have any like slides and stuff like that over here now in clinicals to read over and go over the material. So you need something else. So I mean, Anki for me has been just fine, and obviously UWorld. You just kind of stick to that schedule. Otherwise, I find that you do have a little bit more time than the first 2 years in your clinical years to just kind of hang out and relax a little bit. I mean, depending on you, you kind of study more towards the end, or you kind of start studying from the beginning of your rotation itself. It depends on how you are, really. It's up to you. A lot of people like to just kind of leave UWorld towards the end so they don't like finish the questions too soon. Some people like to do the first pass and the second pass afterwards. So I think the main difference is you'll be doing a lot of questions. Like it's literally just questions, which you're going to learn from. And I mean, I think the biggest consensus is that UWorld is like what you have to live by in clinicals. If you master UWorld, you should be fine on your exams. I think that's the biggest difference in studying. I would say, like, you don't have a lot of like resources which tell you exactly what you need to know for every rotation, because there's just so much information in each rotation that you just cannot grasp it all. But you just have to pick and choose what works for you. And I mean, if something has worked for you through the first 2 years, then I would just stick through that.
Yeah, so for step 1, I did UWorld and NBME. In clinicals, I do UWorld and NBME. The frustrating part about not using a textbook is that I get a lot of the UWorld questions wrong, but that's a learning experience. It's analogous to looking at it on a slide, right? It's just a learning thing. You just got the question wrong. But then I do go back and go through those questions again. So it is a bit frustrating that your scores are a little lower, but you're learning through this process. You also learn on the job as well, too. But that's also frustrating because sometimes in the real world, what they do is not exactly what the book tells you to do. So that's another frustrating thing. Let's see what's next. How did you find the shelf exams in comparison to the SGU exams? I know Savannah's driving. We'll just let her drive. So, Sean, what do you think?
So shelf exams and SDU exams are like Jupiter and Mars. Like you can't compare them. SGU exams, man, I don't even remember what those were like. They are like, I'll just focus on the shelf exam. Shelf exams are kind of really tailored to UWorld and what you would do clinically. So they're more so geared towards prepping you for step 2. So if you're doing a shelf exam, you're going to be thinking of like, if this patient was in front of me, what am I going to do for them? What's the best next step? Versus SGU exams don't really test you on like best next step and things like that. So SGU exams are tailored towards step 1. Shelf exams are tailored towards step 2. It's, in my opinion, it's a completely different ball game. You can't really compare the two because they have different kind of end goals and different measures. So you will get there when you get there. Just know that you're going to be prepping for them differently. You're going to be kind of using your hospital experience, your UWorld for step 2 to prep for those. SGU, you really just focus on like first aid and Anki and however you're step studying to prep for that. So 2 different things.
Yeah, right. So as you said,
But
step
still,
1 is
but still doable. I'm not saying that they're more difficult. They are pretty much the same as long as you're studying well. Like, I'm not going to say they're easy. I'm not going to say they're difficult. Obviously, like the surgery one is easier, in my opinion, than like the family med, or is harder than the family medicine one, but you just need to gauge that.
So yeah, step 1 is about what is the diagnosis. Step 2 is what are you going to do about it, right? So what do you want to do? Get a CAT scan, ultrasound? Do you need baby surgery right now? It gets a little confusing because sometimes you're like, I could get a CAT scan or an ultrasound. What do you want? You just have to do the questions. If you get it wrong, just try to remember it for the next time. How did you study for shelf exams? Did anybody go outside of UWorld and NBMEs? Anybody like an Amboss user, or besides Anki too, Pooja?
I used Amboss a little bit, especially more towards the beginning of my 3rd year. On Amboss, they have this thing like called study plans, and they have one for each clerkship. So for my first couple rotations, which was like surgery, IM, psych, I used the study plan, and then my goal was to kind of finish that by the half point of my rotation. Especially because for surgery, you have so much time. It's a 12-week rotation. There's only like 700 UWorld questions. So I did the entire Amboss study plan, and then I started doing UWorld and NBMEs after that. And for IM, I did like half of the study plan. I didn't actually get through all of it, but I did all of UWorld and my incorrects. And then for psych, again, I did all of the Amboss study plan. And I felt like when I did it that way, I was scoring a lot higher on UWorld, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a foundation because I hated going into UWorld blind. So when I did the Amboss study plan, it was by topic. So I could watch like an online med ed video about, or like even like a YouTube video about like whatever specific topic it was on, and then answer like 20 questions on that topic. So when I got to UWorld, I at least knew a little bit.
Yeah, and to build on that, it depends on your hospital and it depends on you what you want to do. For example, if you're doing surgery, a surgery rotation, and you want to go into surgery, so you have to really be putting in work at the hospital, for example, to get an LOR or whatever, you're not going to be able to put in like a 10 out of 10 effort to really impress people and do your Amboss and watch Boards and Beyond or online med ed and do your UWorld and do your Anki. You're going to be way too busy, or you're going to end up slacking somewhere. You're not going to be focusing on the UWorld and you're not going to get the scores that you want, or you're not going to be retaining it, or you're just going to be on your computer all night and you're not going to like go scrub in for the surgery, or like not research what it is that you're supposed to be like looking up or something like that. So gauge how much time you have, do it for like a week and try and do as much as you can. But like, for example, for surgery, I started off doing UWorld and Amboss, but I found that I was either spending too much time studying, because the problem is a 3rd year, you don't have that much time. So you have to really pick and choose what resources you're using. So if you're doing, like, for example, I used Anki, UWorld, and Boards and Beyond. Those were my 3. I tried to fit Amboss and online med ed in there and sometimes Sketchy, but there's just not enough time in a day, right? So you have to be a good med student as well as a good student at the hospital, right? So pick and choose your battles. AMBOSS tends to be a little bit more specific and kind of, in my personal opinion, lower yield with some of their questions versus UWorld tends to do high yield. So pick and choose. Maybe in my opinion, I would like to finish UWorld, and then if I have time, I go to AMBOSS, or I go to AMBOSS if I'm struggling with a certain topic. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is being able to study efficiently, right? So you're going to have, like, in surgery or whatever, you'll have maybe a case in the morning, you'll have an hour, a case, lunch, didactics in the afternoon. So you need to fit in questions in those little breaks. If it means you have to study at lunch, probably should do so, because if you think you're going to work get up at 5 a.m., work a 12-hour shift, and then go home and study, maybe, but you probably won't retain it very well. Okay, so if you could study during the day, you become very efficient at getting little spaces of time to do work, which I know you're not used to. You're used to being able to study all night, all afternoon, whatever. So you need to be able to do it. And I mean, I can't say this enough, like, sleep is so important. Like, Akash and I had to be at the hospital like 4:30 in the morning for surgery, and like, I swear we were all just zombies. Like, it was just like, it was a bit brutal, but we found time during the day to study, because when you get home, you have like you go to the gym and then go to sleep, and then you have to be up in the morning. So like, don't think like you might be an ideal and say, oh, I'm going to study at home when I get home, but it's hard to retain that kind of information at that level. So sorry, let me just answer this question that was posed. Is farm not heavy on? Yes, I know. Okay, so I know that SU kind of doesn't test a lot of farm during term 5. My step 1 was not exactly farm heavy, but that's not a global thing. I'm not going to tell you to not study farm, because it will show up on step 1. But it's not the most high yield thing. Does anybody have any input? What did they think in regards to farm on step 1?
On step 1, from my experience, I felt like the farm was very fair in terms of what you saw in the questions. They always try and test on the same ballpark of drugs. I'm not going to say it was always 1-to-1, but usually they have their favorite cancer drugs, or they have their favorite antibiotics. And if you're good at those trends and you can pick up those more high yieldier ones, the ones that come up more often, I felt very comfortable going into the test with that kind of knowledge, and it worked out for me. I have full faith that it can work out for you guys too. And if you always have some issues with farm, really direct your learning towards attacking your weaknesses, and you'll find that it'll just help you on a broader scope too when you go into a full content.
And the way you studied farm, say like in term 4, you're looking at what's the best drug, second best drug, what if they have allergies to it, but also side effects. It's the same kind of profiling. So that's, you don't have to learn anything new. You just have to, touch back up on the things mostly in term 4 that you talked about. How much information do attending residents expect you to know on the fly? I think we kind of talked about this. I mean, look, there's some attendings out there that it's part of the game, right? Like, it's just, you get pimped, whatever, it's just part of it, right? So don't take anything seriously. They don't expect you to know everything. Just kind of be part of the team, right? As Nick was saying earlier, make an educated guess. That's all they expect out of you. Just you don't just want to be like, I don't know all the time, right? But you're gonna get some of those doctors that are it's just part of it, right? So just accept it's the learning process of medicine. How much time do we get off during core rotations during the break? Yeah, so Pooja, you were saying that there's really not at Hackensack, you really don't get a break. Since most of these August students would be at Hackensack, there's not much.
They do at Jersey Shore, though. It's just Hackensack that doesn't. I think Jersey Shore does the typical 2 weeks.
Okay, can we request to extend this time if we plan on volunteering abroad or a mission trip? How do we get permission to do this? No idea. I'm sure if you talk about that maybe before, like right after you pass step maybe, or even before, don't wait until you get your schedule to start talking about when you need extra time off. Like, be proactive about this if you do. Yes, good point. Yeah, Office of Career Guidance would probably be the people to reach out to. The sooner the better. They could probably do that. But once you get your schedule, you don't have the opportunity to change it once you get your placement. Okay, regardless. I mean, I guess if something really weird happened, but my understanding is once you get your placement, you're stuck. Can you talk a little about how the year 3 timeline looks with core rotations and talk about your year 4 electives? I don't know if we really want to get into year 4. We'll just say this: they're gonna once you get your once you pass step 1, you'll get your full schedule for year 3. You may have little bridge times in between. It really varies, so it's hard to give you a definitive answer on this. But you'll just have to see how your schedule breaks down. Hopefully, you don't have too many large breaks in there. You may get Christmas off. I think what did we work up to? The 24th, Akash, I think, or the 23rd of December, and then we were off to like January 2nd. So we had like a week off for Christmas, I think. Yeah, and then fourth year, you're very free to schedule do your own electives. We won't get too into that, but you could pick different hospitals if you plan on staying where you're at. You can, there's options there. It's tough though, like some of these hospitals are high in demand. So you got to get your you got to get your applications in like right when they put the applications out to try to get that. But we could worry about fourth year when the time comes. But just know you have a lot more freedom. So if you want to go into peds, you can look at the area you want to live in and find good peds residency programs. Or if you're interested in a fellowship, you can find areas or hospitals that offer residency directly into fellowships there. So these are things to look at, but they'll still have time. Tips for navigating workplace culture. Where do medical students fall in the hierarchy of the medical team? I'm not sure we're on the medical team. We kind of just stand in the corner and clap when things happen and the baby's born. I'm just kidding. It depends. Sometimes like we'll have deliveries that are super complicated, like twins, and they're very premature and there's like 50 people in the room. They don't even let you scrub in. You just kind of stand in the back and pray. Sometimes they'll let you scrub in, then they'll let you close. They'll let you suture close. So it really just depends on the situation. But if you want to know on the hierarchy of things, you're definitely at the bottom. Like it's just how it is, but just part of it. But again, if you're proactive about it and you really kind of like are confident, like a lot of attendings will treat you like residents. Some of the OB doctors in the clinic over here, they'll just let you go see their patients, do a full HPI on them, and then come report to them. So they treat you like an actual resident. So again, it really just depends. You kind of just have to be proactive, especially if you're interested in the field. Tell them you want to do this. Tell them you'd like to suture. Tell them you want to learn these things. And they're more like, look, they don't want to do extra work. They'll let you do it if you're competent enough to do it.
Definitely. It's
okay.
all about how much you put yourself into it and how useful you are. If you're just going to stand there and ask them like questions, that's helpful. Like it's helpful to you, but it's not really helpful to them. And they have to kind of, if it's a resident or whatever, they have to put down what they're doing to try and teach you. But if you're telling the resident like, oh, like 4 patients need an IV, I'll go do that for you while you do this. You've just, lightened their workload and they're going to like you a lot more because you're helping them. If they're on IM, for example, they get to go home, sooner, or their work is going to be done and they might be able to go have lunch because you help them out. So if you're helpful on the team, they're going to value you more than if you were to just be standing in the corner. So it's what you make of it.
Yeah, and like Akash and I on this rotation have done enough C-sections in the last few weeks that we could kind of know the doctor's going to need this or your first assist and you could do this. So like the goal is like if they tell you to do something once, just if they correct you once, don't have to get corrected again. Okay, so it's kind of, they don't, it's fine to get corrected once, just try your best not to make them repeat themselves. But again, feel out the situation. Like on surgery, a lot of the residents are lacking sleep. It's not that they're mean or short with you. It's just they don't get a lot of sleep. So if they're just kind of in their own zone, just give them space. You just have to feel it out. You don't want to be too much of a burden, but you don't want to just stand in the corner. Okay, so just kind of feel out the situation. How did you approach research publications? Anybody? Maybe our doctors can talk about that.
If you have a cool case, ask to write it up. It's that easy. There's probably at least half a dozen cool cases I saw that were my patients or patients on my team during rotations. I only ended up writing up one of them because I didn't feel like doing more. But if I wanted to and I asked my residents, there's like 0% chance they would have said no, because you pretty much do all the writing and they just have to read it over and send it out for publishing. And they have to do research too. It looks good for them, especially if they're interested in fellowships. So it's super easy. After you do that, you can always ask your residents if it's a specialty you're interested in, to let you know if they have any other projects going on. And a lot of times, like if you reach out periodically, they'll let you help write whatever they're working on. And then your name gets to go on it. Even if you're not the first author, you're like second or third. For residency purpose, like for application purposes, I really don't think it matters that much. If you're going into something like I am, a publication is a publication, whether you're first author or not.
And just so you know, a lot of surgery programs really, really stress that you have at least one publication. But yes, as Pooja said, these case reports are great. You see something cool, like, yeah, write it up. But Akash and I, we approached one of the residents here. We were kind of in the camp where we'll do everything. We just need a little bit of guidance. And now we're doing a vitamin D with COVID outcome, a vitamin D deficiency and COVID outcomes. So you can, as Pooja mentioned, you can do case reports, or you could do like retrospective, analysis for stuff like that. So again, if you approach the resident and you're like, just tell me what to do and we'll all do it. There's a couple of us doing this thing, so it's not too much work. Again, I think the name of the game is to be proactive about these things. John, something you want to add?
Yeah, I received a pretty good tip recently that residents, they are encouraged to do research, or they're mandated to do research depending on the program. The people that really do research that are really good targets, if you want to like talk to them, are fellows. A lot of fellowships nowadays, they're, if it's a 2-year fellowship, oftentimes the first year is fellowship training and the second year is a research year. And so they have to publish like X number of projects in that year to actually graduate from fellowship. And so just like emailing a few fellows, I got like a bunch of responses because they have to publish, and the less work they do, the happier they are. And they work better hours than the residents, and they're not as tired, sleep deprived. So fellows are a really good target. And then also, yes, like working with residents' case reports, that's always a great and easier way to get a publication or to do a poster presentation or whatever it is. But you can also do research yourself. If you have like a good idea, or if you just open up Google Scholar and just, if you have any experience with research, or if you think you found like something that's interesting, just read about it and, look into doing something yourself. And, it's difficult if you haven't done research before, and you could always reach out to people and see like, oh, how can I put a team together or write something up? And if you start a project from scratch, that can be a really, really strong point on an application. So, it's something to consider.
One thing that I got a tip on when I was kind of in your guys' shoes was something called Pearl Stats. I never used it. I kind of looked into it. It is something where you can get published through. It's just kind of like a paper review type thing. You put stuff together, but it's a good option as well.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Do you have the website? Maybe you could put it in the chat. I've never heard of that. Anyway, again, be proactive about this. You don't want to be at the end of third year trying to figure this stuff out, or in fourth year trying to figure it out. Just talk to the residents about it. Usually the hospitals, like we had a specific research physician that was in charge of it. So we could actually reach out to them and he could point us in the right direction there.
And make sure your research is something, one, you are interested in, and two, is something that you actually understand. The last thing you want is to put your name on something and you have no idea what was going on, and you go into like an interview or you talk to someone about it and it's evident that you have no idea what happened. If it's like so super statistics heavy and then you don't even understand the statistics, or you don't even know anything about it, it's not just about having your name on something, it's about contributing something to a team or actually being able to use those skills in residency.
And COVID's still a hot topic. So if you're interested, anybody will publish anything that has to do something with COVID. So if you're interested in that. Okay, let's see. How do you approach asking for letters of recommendation? Some admins have suggested being upfront in the beginning that you will be asking. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, you kind of just work with them, but you should go into if it's something especially if you're interested in, you should go in thinking like, okay, I'm going to try to work with this doctor. He's the residency director at this institution. Like, I'm gonna try to work with him and hopefully get a letter from him. But and a lot of people get super nervous or stressed about this. Like, they're willing to do it. It's kind of part of their job. Like, they need to do these things. So the key is to work with someone that you get to know well enough that they'll write you something that's not too terribly generic. Okay, so you don't just want to give them your CV and then spit it out. But yeah, so you just kind of have to approach it. So it does vary from specialty to specialty. Surgery likes 3 letters of recommendation from surgery and 1 from another department. Pooja, correct me if I'm wrong. I think IM's 2 and 2.
Yeah, so it depends on the program. Most IM programs actually only require 3 letters. So if they only required 3, I only sent 3. So it was usually 2 IM letters and 1 other. But I did have 5 letters total. I had 2 IM letters, 1 from 3rd year and 1 from 4th year. I had 2 letters from other clerkship directors that were just like other letters. And then IM also likes like the SEL or like chair's dean's letter, whatever it's called. So I had that, but it was really generic. So I only sent it to the programs that absolutely required it, which for me was only like 3 or 4 programs.
Right. So again, moral of the story, be proactive about these things. Try to get them early. You don't want to wait until the end of 3rd year or even 4th year to get it, because then you're going to be submitting your residency application. Again, I think we're getting too far out of, I'm getting too far out of context here. The point being, when you start, try to be proactive about getting letters, right? Kind of pinpoint who you'd like to work with more. If there's a surgeon that, always does his operations at a certain time, try to be the person in there to work with him a lot so they see your face, or even IM or whatever. Just try to be around so you can get a good letter. Anybody else have anything to add on that? Letters? It's just one of the things you got to do. It's kind of like research. You just got to get through it. Yeah. Okay. Are there clubs, group extracurriculars you can get involved with? Sure, it's just like anything else. The gym, IEA is still a thing. Like, we do research. I'm sorry, we do volunteer hours, but we'll talk about all that later. But yeah, it's just like anywhere else, just in the area. Yeah, you could, if you find time. But it's important to do things outside of the hospital, whether that's working out or going to play basketball or whatever. Yeah. Time management, how do you go about balancing studying, clinical training, maintaining your relationships? Who wants to talk about that?
So this is the most difficult aspect of 3rd year, because you are working a full-time job and you are expected to be studying and retaining that information, as well as maintaining your sanity in terms of going to the gym or spending X amount of time on FaceTime with your family or whatever it might be. So setting a schedule is difficult because your schedule is going to differ like every week, maybe even every day. So you won't exactly know what's going on all the time, but it's just about taking it day by day is my absolute best advice. If you wake up in the morning and you say, okay, I'm going to the hospital now, and then you say, okay, I have all this stuff to finish. I have my Anki to finish. I have to do X number of UWorld questions, and I have to, watch 2 Boards and Beyond videos, and I have to go to the gym for this long. So once I know what I'm doing for that day, I can plan accordingly, but you have to be flexible. Like if you didn't, get the time to finish 5 UWorld questions that day, you'll make it up on the weekends. And the weekends are absolutely important. The weekends are not like basic sciences where you get to like do whatever you want on the weekend. Sometimes you might work the weekend, or other times where you're not working the weekend, you might have to make up stuff that you were doing that you didn't get to do during the week. And so it's really, like I said, you got to take it day by day. And that's the absolute best advice I can give you, honestly.
That along with sleep too, right? I mean, you may be able to go 5 or 6 hours of sleep, but I promise you, you're not retaining the information you need to. So you definitely need to have sleep, but like any job or anything, you need to make time for yourself as well. Okay, I think that's all the questions we had. I know we try to make that quick. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask that we didn't cover? Going once, going twice. All right, you can always reach out to us, Facebook, whatever. Nick, you're offering tutoring now, is that right? Could you want to
Yeah,
leave your
for,
email address or something?
Yeah, I can put my email in the chat. Yeah, I'm doing
Yeah, please
offering
do.
tutoring for kind of the MBMEs and more step 2, but I might be able to help with, test taking strategies and stuff for step 1.
Yeah, so if you're looking for that, reach out to Nick. He can help you out there. Okay, well, good luck finishing up the term. Finish strong, take the weekend off, start studying for step. I'm telling you, this goes so fast. Me and Akash were joking the other day, like, I can't believe we're done. Like, we're done third year. Like, Tuesday is my last day at this hospital for a long time. So next Tuesday. So it really goes by fast. So yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come help us. Best of luck in the rest of your adventures, and congratulations to you guys who just matched.
All right. Again, if y'all need anything, feel free to reach out. We're always available and happy to help. Okay, bye.
Bye, guys. All right, so for current IEA members, and I think we have some people from Quen's cohort also joining us. We're going to be going over some of the specific IEA requirements that you guys have to complete during clinical years, and also just how to go about that. So if you guys want to tune in, let me work on sharing my screen.
Emily, I'm gonna just leave it on so the recording continues. Okay, so we can just close the session when you're done. All right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Quinn, did you want to go over some of this, or did you want me to go over some of the general stuff?
If you like to do the general stuff, I can hop in for mine. Either's fine.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so now is the time where I know we all have a lot of questions. What do I need to do in clinicals? How do we submit all this kind of stuff? So we have a presentation here that'll kind of quickly go through it, and we will be sending out the slides at the end of this. So if you guys want those, you'll have those. And then of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. So moving forward into clinical years, your point of contact is going to be the president who was reigning during your term 5s. So us current term 5s, it's going to be Kevin. And then for the current term 4s, it's going to be Matthew. If you need to contact, you have any questions, we're trying to really focus on keeping the Gmail as our clinical years email, and then the Outlook, the sgu.edu as the basic sciences, because the current e-board has the access to the Outlook, and the clinical years members have access to that. So if you have questions, Gmail is the way to go. So for the WMPG, you have to keep it at 90 and above. And unlike the basic sciences, we're not going to be asking you guys to submit your dean's letter, anything like that on a termly basis. It's going to be you either at the end of your 4th year have the 90%, or you do not have the 90%. And also just side note that it's not rounded. As you guys know, even 89.9, unfortunately, is not quite where it needs to be. So that being said, for term 5, if you dip below the 90% after term 5, you still do have that chance to be on the academic probation. All you'll need to do is email Dr. Clunes a copy of your transcript at the end of the term that you've now reached above the 90%, and then you'll regain the active IEA member status. Honors points. So basically, you'll need to complete a minimum of 8 honors points per year. And per our constitution, there are no restrictions on the type of community service performed. So whether that be, volunteering to go swab people for COVID or volunteering by tutoring or anything like that, anything you can think of is fair game and you could submit it. I know Quinn and Kevin have a little bit different, are changing things up a little bit in the way that we're going to be submitting honors points. So I'll let them go ahead and take that at the end there. But generally we have Google Forms, kind of like the honors points in basic sciences that we'll be using to kind of submit those and track those. And the deadline per year is March 31st. So March 31st, at the end of your third year, you have to submit those 8 honors points. And then again, at the end of those fourth year. So that is a yearly recurring thing by March 31st. So at the moment, we have the honors point submission within the IEA member portal on the new website. So you'll go to honors points just like you have in basic sciences. However, now we're going to be on the right-hand side here instead of the left-hand side. So you'll just click there and get to the Google form. And if there's any changes in this, we'll be sure to communicate it with you guys. Just a reminder that the deadline to submit honors points is March 31st. Here's some cool ideas for community service that people have done in the past. Volunteering at public libraries, when COVID hit, that was, a way for you guys to go get some volunteer hours, working, swabbing, things like that. And then for honors points probation, because it's now on a yearly thing, you have, only with a 1 year to be on probation. So if you're unable to get the 8 points by the end of your third year, you're going to have to do a double requirement of 16 honors points in the fourth year. But fourth year, we're graduating. There's no more time for probation. So you need to make sure that you submit your honors points by March 31st by the end of the fourth year in order to be eligible for your cords. Cannot stress that enough. You don't want to have come this far and forgotten to submit honors points. Please, please, please do that by March 31st. And just another reminder, honors point submissions are due yearly by March 31st. So just a quick recap, the WMPG, we're not going to be asking that for that by a term basis. It's going to be checked at the very, very end by the president that was reigning during your term 5. And then you need to make sure by third and fourth year, you are submitting those honors points. It's 8 per year. So at the very end, if you met the requirements, you're eligible for the IEA cords. If you didn't, no IEA cords. Questions, again, please reach out to the emails. The Gmail is going to really be the best one for the clinical inquiries. And does anyone have any questions so far? Cool. All right. So if you think of anything, just go ahead and reach out. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to you, Quinn.
Alrighty, what's up, guys? I do see a couple of faces from my cohort, and I want to say that, guys, I think it's super special to lead the clinical cohort. I love the basic science years, obviously. I love Grenada and the island, but working with the small number of you guys makes it easier to be there for you, more present with you guys, and be able to manage you guys and do some of the things that we want to do to make this experience as easy as possible so you can focus on dominating the clinical floors. So let's go ahead and jump into some of that. All right, so how do you know if you're in the clinical cohort managed by me? Basically, if you are starting your first clinical rotation in May or June, I know there is some overlap between some students who may have delayed step. Maybe they weren't in term 5 for when I was the IA president. Maybe might have been when it was Sean or maybe Brady, or whatever the case may be. But if you are starting your first clinical rotation sometime between May or June, you will be with me. If there is an outlier text, I have spoken to some people who have some outlier situations. Just contact me and we'll make sure we sort you with the right clinical coordinator. Another requirement, so to register just off the bat, I do ask for that Term 5's Dean's letter. Again, we don't ask for it in between MS3. We only check it at MS4, but just so I make sure that I have a list of who's going to be rocking with us through this first MS3 year, I just want to see that Term 5 Dean's letter. And again, I've spoken to some people off screen about certain special circumstances, and I'll try and take that on a term-by-term basis. But basically, as long as you have that Dean's letter, you're fine. The biggest push I want to make is that if you have any friends or know of anyone who may qualify for IEA, definitely reach out, because the sooner we can get them on board, the easier it will be to manage their points coming up to graduation time. The next thing that I need to see from you guys is 16 volunteer hours. Again, Emily did a great job of listing some ideas for you, but use your friends, use your resources. You're going to see very soon how we came up with a new idea to help you guys sign up for volunteer opportunities and make that a lot easier on you. Again, our main focus is to make IEA requirements as easy as possible so you can shift your focus to the floors. And all that to say, we need your WMPG to be above a 90. So make that your primary focus. The hours, everything else that comes alongside it, leave it to me to help you guys complete that. But all in all, and have fun with this and enjoy this process. But let's check out some things that we've been working on to make this a little easy for you. So first and foremost, we have our registration form. Oh, and laptop died. I have a whole bunch of links for you guys that I was going to send, but luckily I have QR code galore coming up. So if you scan this, it'll go to our registration form. Again, spam it to your friends. It will be going out in another email another time that will have all these links, especially this registration form for anyone who may qualify for our cohort. So make sure you scan that and bookmark it. Going on to our next QR code. We have volunteer opportunities. So this is something that I'm excited about. I think one of the challenges that we've seen in IEA is just making sure that everyone has access, or maybe might know, or has the ease of signing up for volunteer and getting volunteer exposure. One, just to complete the requirement, and two, because one of our core values at IEA is to give back into our community. So we want to make sure that we get you guys as much exposure as possible. So all this is going to go up on, again, our website, this email that's going to be drafted out soon. And of course, you can scan it here. But essentially, and you get a little preview of it down below, but you guys can post volunteer opportunities. I'll go ahead and sign off on it, and then other people can tag along. This is a virtual thing. Maybe it can be an in-person thing if you're in the same region. But that way, it's kind of like an open forum, almost like a Craigslist-y thing. But again, something that might make you guys more readily available for volunteer ops. So look out for that. You guys are able to edit this form, and hopefully it makes your lives easier. So shifting to the next QR code, we have our point submission form, pretty standard. You'll see some tweaks to that, just because if you want to upload a photo that we can use for publicity to our website, I give you that option. But I also include another element just to show that you guys did do a volunteer opportunity. I asked for like a very short, it can be a sentence or two, just to experience quote from you guys. Maybe it's like, oh, I volunteered at a food drive and my advisor said that I was really quick, or whatever it was, just so I know that you guys had some meaningful involvement in whatever task you went out to complete. So the point submission otherwise is very standard. Just want to make sure it's there for you guys to scan and save. Again, all will be posted on our website. And point tracker. So this is where I want to be able to address my cohort personally. I want to open up a lot of transparency for both myself and you guys. And one of the many, many questions we get to our email, and I'm sure Emily, Kevin, and Brady, and all of our past board members can attest to this. The number one question we get is, how many points do I have? Am I eligible for graduation? Things of that nature. So I trust that the professional side of us can come out here, that we can attempt this new protocol and have basically an open log where you can log on. You can't edit this form, only I can edit this form, but you guys can make comments in case there might be a mistake. And some of you guys are already up on the form so far, but I'll make sure to update the entire cohort once I have it. You'll see your point totals for MS3, MS4, and a breakdown to how many points you need to graduate. I'll make sure to update this as much as possible, so make sure you hold me accountable to that. But this is there just so you guys can have a one-stop shop to keep track of your points without having to go through the email, because who knows where it can go from there. So you can scan it and of course check it out on our website. Our next QR code, sorry, it was QR code galore, but this is our WhatsApp. It's the main way that I like to communicate with you guys. As for now, I mean, I only see it as the WhatsApp. I've flirted with ideas that we could have used elsewhere, and we'll see if we can implement that down the line. But for now, just use that to talk to each other. Mostly I use that to post more logistical and formal announcements, but it's just a good way to get notifications, again, specific to my cohort. You won't get a lot of large IEA notifications, but definitely things to the cohort. It would be a great place to just be. We won't blow it up with spam, I promise. So going over to our next, and I believe our last QR codes. Oh, almost before that, I put this in as a placeholder because I want to be able to be a resource for you guys. As a smaller cohort, again, there isn't much we can do because we're not all in the same location like we're on the island. But being a small size, we can do things like virtual activities. We can do things like, study sessions or meet and greets, whatever it wants to be. I'm happy to hear whatever you want to hear. At the moment, we're just going to keep things as simple and bare minimum as possible because the clinical rounds are your main focus. But obviously, my line's open for suggestions. I want this to be an experience that you guys are proud of. And just through communication, we can make that possible. So just want to put that placeholder there. And that segues perfectly to my last slide here. Just ways to contact me. So there's my email written. And of course, what's a PowerPoint by Quinn without a QR code? You can also scan it to email me if you want to, or you can scan that and WhatsApp me directly. You can definitely text me on iMessage. You can call me. You can do whatever you need to do. I want to be able to be there for you guys. I want to make sure you guys get recognition from IEA for all the hard work you do. And that's my number one focus through these next 2 years. And I think it's going to be super special. So let's have fun, guys, and let's make this an amazing experience. I believe that's all I had.
All right, guys, let me stop the screen here. I know I had a couple questions in the chat. I'm going to take pictures of those and go ahead and email everyone that reached out. So if you don't hear from us, go ahead and email, but I'm going to take pictures then. And then we're going to send out the slides with the clinical requirements to you guys. Any questions before we sign off? All right. So thank you guys, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Quen, for coming in and addressing your cohort. And we'll see you guys later.
Best of luck to you fives and everyone else on the island right now, and all our clinical friends too.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.